It's Jay and Shad. And
Hi.
Hi. We're just currently trying to see if this is all working on the YouTubes, and I think it is. We are live on the YouTubes.
Hey.
And how are we on the Facebooks? Are we on the Facebooks?
Check it out.
Checking it.
Oh no.
No, not that one.
Yes.
All right. Welcome everybody. We're doing a thing. This is a live. Hi, I'm Jay Cormier.
I'm Shad Miller.
And we designed a fun little game called Harrow County, the game of Gothic conflict. This is a Q&A, an AMA, an Ask Me Anything, a question and answer, whatever you want to call it. And we're going to ramble on until we get some questions. So please type any questions, like what's your favorite food, or where'd you come up with the idea,
sushi.
or anything. Yeah, is sushi's the answer? Okay, cool.
Sushi.
But while people are still getting on and getting ready and typing questions, because I'm sure that's just a huge amount of questions coming. Oh yeah, exactly. We'll chat about the newest update we just did, because it was a doozy of an update. Here at Off the Page Games, we're really pride ourselves on listening to the feedback and to the backers and to what they're saying and what they want, and try to accommodate whatever we can. Some things we just can't because of costs and whatnot, blah blah blah. But like if people are talking about it, we want to figure it out. And so the first thing was Asia shipping. Our Asia shipping was out of whack. And so the reason for that was I went with a new shipping provider that actually kind of provided a shipping solution for the entire world. And I'm like, for me, that's just super simple. And I just have to deal with one company, one person, one contact, and they're going to help me. And they have hubs all over. They have hubs, shipping fulfillment centers all over the world, but I just deal with one company. And I'm like, oh, that's great. But a lot of the Asian prices were just out of whack. They just do not have a great solution. And so I went to VFI and got them to give me some quotes on some prices, and it's just so much better. And I should have done that in person. So I'll do this new company for everything else, and then VFI will do just Asia, because their Asia prices are just wonderful. So so check out, if you haven't already, check out the newest update 7, and it has all the updated prices for Asia, including now South Africa. It wasn't included before. Now that is. India, Indonesia, like all over. Price of China just way better. Like it went right to the cheapest place. It was like really expensive for China, which is super weird because it doesn't even have to go on a boat or anything. And and it was super expensive. Now it's super cheap. So that's big news number 1. Big news number 2 is our solo mode. So we put out the stretch goal for the solo mode. We announced it early to kind of like tantalize, tease, get people excited, tell people that we have one, a well-tested solo mode, but it did require more content from our stretch goals in order to make it happen, because we are leveraging a tiny portion of the space on all the cards. And we literally needed, if you read one of our updates, all 37 cards that eventually we will hopefully and probably unlock. We needed every single one of them. Why? Because how many hexes, Shad, are there on our Harrow County map?
37.
Isn't that weird? And it was super fluky and weird and fun that we counted the hexes. 37. Like, can we use the current cards? And we went and counted our current cards that we had, including our stretch goal ones, and it was like we have exactly 37.
It was
so like
a little eerie. I was pretty excited.
It was. It's super weird, and like, the fact that we're going to do a live
questions happening.
Oh, good. We're going to do a live stream on Monday to demonstrate the solo mode, which is great. But you'll be even more surprised at how symmetrical things balance out with the cards. Like it's also kind of weird how perfect it is. I can't wait to show you that. But what we were able to do then, we re-looked at our stretch goals, and we realized that we could put all of the cards that we need just next. Make them card. Because we had them spread out, so they're kind of like, some of this, some of that, and just do cards. And then now, all of a sudden, instead of 250,000, it's 165,000. And we're right now at, 141, 142 or something?
Yeah, I'll check right now. So I'm certainly not checking every second all the time.
It's I don't want to say guaranteed. If all of a sudden
we're on our way.
We're it should be pretty close to guaranteed, especially if y'all, do your part. Maybe not, you're doing your part by backing. That's your part.
Thank you.
But if you could do extra, it would be like talking about it, posting about it, whatever you can.
So appreciate that.
Oh, of course we would. Yeah, of course we would. Let's check out some of these things.
Imagine somebody not finding out about our game and wishing that they had.
Oh, how many people missed out? How many people missed out on mind management?
Yeah, that was.
I know the answer to that because I get all the emails saying, "Hey, can I get a mind management deluxe?" I'm like, "No, sorry, there's not left."
We were at Gen Con. It was like every other, like people just kept coming up, and Jay was he was sad. He wanted.
You don't want to miss out on the next big thing.
No, but it's a big deal.
So that was the two biggest things in the update that we just sent out. And we also talked and hinted at the fact that we're looking at the Fairfolk expansion. And so we have our guy, Daniel Cunningham, who's done all our inserts. He did our cube tower design. He's wonderful. He's absolutely amazing to work with. I absolutely am loving that. He's great. Everything about him is great. And he's actually printing out 3D printing. He has a 3D printer, 3D printing all the components as if they were wood. Not all, like obviously not cards. Cards are cards. But the stuff that could be wood, make them wood, and see if it can physically fit in that size box or not. That's awesome. So we might have some. He's going to do that tonight. So I might know by tomorrow. But I might save the update till Sunday. We'll see. Yeah. So that's cool. So then we'll have a deluxe Fairfolk for the deluxe buyers, but then the normal Fairfolk will be for retail. The one that you currently see, that'll still exist as a retail edition, but everything inside of a deluxe satchel edition will be hopefully deluxeified. We'll see. Good evening from the other side of the world. Oh, cool. Mark, where are you from? I'm watching enjoying my morning coffee. Awesome. Tell us where you're from, Mark. Joe said, how is working with a writer and artist duo versus a single writer artist like my management? That's a good question. Joe, he's our customer solutions manager. Thanks for asking questions, Joe.
Yeah, Joe.
It's actually it was almost the same in a way because 90% of what I've worked on was with Tyler, the artist. So I was mostly working with him. And then we would have check-ins with Cullen and Tyler, just to make sure and I would definitely throw stuff at him from a brainstorming perspective, especially when we were early on trying to figure out names and titles of things, get Cullen's feedback on that. So and then now more recently, he's helping to write this newspaper, which was one of the stretch goals. So I'm excited to see how that's going to look. That's really cool. Plus, he's writing those stories in the updates. I hope you're enjoying those. They're super cool.
I was really pleased to see those. I was like, wow, okay.
It's so cool. Like I'm like trying to think of how to leverage these stories because they're so cool. I don't know. I don't want to increase the cost, but it'd be cool if it was like a little comic with those stories and some of the art from the game or something. That'd be so cool, but I can't increase the cost anymore. Right. Stop it. It's no more costs. But I love the stories, so I don't know. It's really cool. Hi, Mark.
I remember a brainstorm with Cullen where it was before we had figured out that we were going to use the tree as before we even had a cube tower at all. And he was like, I really want to see what and we knew we were going to put these things in, but him emphasizing that I think we didn't have Hester yet. We didn't have Hester figured out yet either.
We don't need to figure out, but we had some element.
We knew we were going to put her.
We didn't know if she was going to be an expansion or we were trying to figure that out.
And he said he just pushed and said, yep, these things. And then I don't think we came up with it in that session, but it was pretty close after, from what I remember.
And he was not adamant, but he was like wishing or like voted that Hester should come in the box. That's part of the core experience, like of a Harrow County game. You need Hester in there.
Jay always asks, what could we do to make it 10% better? Which I think is a great question because they were very happy, as I remember, with where we were at. But that was his response to that, and it was nice. It was a good thing for us to, because we were, the balance. I've been so happy to see how many people have commented on, that review you posted said, the knife blade balance, and I thought, that's so nice because it was such a fun challenge to get it that balanced.
And we can go down a little memory lane here because this is a Q&A, and we have another comment, but we'll go down memory lane here.
Sure.
So the game came out. The game was designed as a game called Skirmishes that you may or may not have read in a previous post that Shad and I made that had 3 different maps, and you had to balance your efforts. You're like, I got to do something. But I have to do something over here. And oddly enough, it didn't make a ton of sense in the Harrow County world because we're like, well, where are these 3 maps?
What are these locations exactly?
And so we didn't really know, but we kind of kept going forward with it. And eventually, because we actually went down to a single map just to see, like, maybe we need a training mission. Let's go to a single map and do a training mission. And we actually found out that was actually working really well to do a single map, so much so that as we layered in more and more asymmetry, we tried to go back to 2 or 3 maps, and it was impossible. It was like, it was not fun. It was broken. And we're like, it's not worth saving 2 or 3 maps. And it actually got us to a cheaper price point, because 2 or 3 extra maps, it needed a lot more components. It really helped save as much as expensive this game is. And it's unfortunate the game is so expensive. It just has so many unique pieces to it, but that got us. But this big segue was to segue into this. Remember that one time we were playing and everything was going well. We had the 2 players down, 1 versus 1. We had Hester down. Then we're working on the Fair Folk, and we're like, and we're all excited that we got this 4 player. But we had 1 Fair Folk playthrough with now 4 players, and it was going really slow, and it was a long time between turns. And it was like some of my playtesters, and we didn't notice that in the 2 player or even the 3 player. We never noticed that it was so long in between turns. And this was now like. This is, I think, December or January of this year is when that we came, somewhere around there. Because I already had a graphic designer working on it. We had stuff like already planned and everything, you know what I mean? Done, graphic designed and everything. And so we analyzed it, and Chad and I did an exercise, which was a really cool game design exercise, where we went through and we listed all of the exceptions, all of the things that would require somebody to check the rules. Like, I'm playing, like, how do I know I can't do that? How do I know I can't have more than 4 units on a hex? How do I know that I can't bring this onto the brambles? How do I know that? And I got to check the rules. And we list them all, and it was a lot. And we're like, ugh, that was not good.
So many.
And through that brainstorm, as we started like pruning it and trying to, like, how do we get rid of this rule? Well, we have to change this. How do we get rid of this thing, this exception, this thing? Well, we have to change this way it plays and change this way it plays. And that led us to the mason jar idea. Right?
That was huge innovation.
It was huge. So FYI, for those that weren't along the ride before, which is not many, there's only a few playtesters that we had. Your turn used to be, as the protectors or the family or Cammy, was you would do everything in one turn. Everything. You would do your legend power. You do all your abilities.
You had whatever
your wilds.
And they were not permanent.
They were not permanent. They were You wouldn't get a new.
Oh, okay.
You wouldn't get a new one. There was a different way. There was a different way that you got wilds. They were like on your tracks.
Oh yeah. That's
right.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Right, and so, and it took forever to do a turn. Like, imagine doing everything. And in a 2-player game, it wasn't terrible. It was because you would and it did have a lot of interesting strategies.
Until the 4th player, but when we did, we were like, oh, okay.
And so that's when we broke everything down into the 4 mason jars. And it almost was like starting over from a playtesting perspective, because all playtests before that,
a little scary, I think.
It was very scary, because we got graphic design already started and working, and like art's happening and everything. And like,
And the Fair Folk, we were like, is this what's
we just put it,
the Fair Folk was kind of new. We put it on the back.
Pause. Because we got to figure this out right away, because we've got art coming in, everything like that. So it was a big.
Mark said it's hard to imagine the game without mason jars. But yeah, go ahead.
Exactly. So that was a really good exercise. If you're a game designer, that's a really good tip, is to go through your game and find out what are all your points that require a rule check, and that you're like, that's not intuitive, that's not like obvious. And we're going to segue later into a really cool new mode that we have for this game, and we have solved another problem that's very similar to this with doing that same exercise, which we'll get to near the end. So that's really cool.
Great. Wow, that's one of my favorite stories from this.
Because it just
journey.
But it was like it was in a game that's so asymmetric, and it was balanced perfectly in that 2 and 3
That's
player.
why it was so scary, because we're like, no, we don't want to lose the balance. We worked so hard.
But as soon as we tried it with, we played one game with the mason jars broken out, and immediately, I believe it was Graham Johns, who he designed in the Hall of the Mountain King with me. He said,
he's great.
He was great. And he said, I wish there was like a bonus or something you got when choosing your mason jar. We're like, of course.
Yeah.
it was his idea from a playtest that we came up with a bonus house, and immediately was like, yes, that's awesome. And another playtester, Andre, he designed a game called City Builder. He said, we had you activating all 4 of your actions every turn. He's like, no, just do 3, because then one's not chosen, and you're like, that's a tough choice. All of a sudden, it's a choice. Otherwise, that last action, the 4th action, is not a choice. You just do it.
Meaningless.
You have to do it, and it wasn't fun. And it was like, oh, perfect. And so the game started, like, the gameplay immediately started feeling good, but it meant all the legend powers had to be tweaked, because in the first version, which is actually like the 3rd or 4th version, but in the first version, when you executed everything on your turn, we couldn't make the legends too powerful, because you're doing so much on your turn. That it was too much. So
you could just win in a turn if you could. But now
so many,
we have to make them more powerful.
Now we had to go back through and make them all more powerful. And so that was a really cool exercise. But wow, for an asymmetric game to then go back, playtest everyone against everyone. How does Emmy play against Kane? How does
we had that spreadsheet? Like, how many playtests have we done with this character? How many have we done with this character?
A lot of work, everybody. It is.
It was really fun.
So this is all came up with your point. To your point of that one person commenting about how it was a razor's edge of strategy, I'm so glad we got there again, which is why. I'm not wearing my glasses, Shad, so can you read out some questions?
You got it. Okay, so here's where we're at when you stop. So Mark said, it was great seeing a new video of Tyler Crook doing the box art. I agree. That was a really cool video.
It's so wonderful to watch him doing his stuff, man. It's just, and FYI, for those that don't know, the music that is playing during those videos,
should we play it?
Tyler Crook wrote that music. He created that music. That he made it. I
listened to it on a loop while I was reading the
I put the music in. Like I chose the song and put it in and kind of edited his stuff down together to make it a bit more. But that's his music. It's wonderful. It's so creepy.
He's so talented.
It's not just music. It is actually the Harrow County soundtrack.
Yeah.
We should ask Tyler to just add that as a. No, we'll just ask him to add it as a, not a stretch goal, but just add it to everybody's pledge. Maybe see if he's okay with people. I think you can just play for free.
I stream it on. You can stream it all over.
Just Google it. You can find it. Yeah.
I'll throw it in the chat or something. So and then Joe said, solve those puzzles, which I 100% agree with. Free updates, please solve them.
So,
can't wait.
So we did 2 already, and now we've unlocked for the first 2 puzzles that everyone helped solve, which is awesome. And the puzzles, for those that are like, what are you talking about puzzles? On our campaign page, we have these puzzles that require you to understand how to play the game. But hey, there's videos and a rule book that you can peruse through to do it, or just copy somebody else's answer that already posted the solution. We earned reward. Yeah, we earned rewards. We unlocked an alternate side to the legend track for both protectors and the family. So that really expands your play options, which is so cool. But what's the third one, Shad? What's their third? If we solve puzzle 3 and unlock it, what's our reward?
My brain is messing up, but it's for the cube tower to get all the funnel. Get that funnel.
It's a funnel.
It's good to have. I want it.
It's a fold. So it comes flat, and then you just kind of fold it and put a tab in, and there's a little tabs at the bottom that stick into the hole in the top, and you can even kind of push the little tabs in, so it kind of stays in a bit more secure. And boom, it's also designed by Daniel Cunningham, who did our cube tower design. So he's actually made it, tested it himself. It's awesome, and the art is also by Tyler as well.
And
that's puzzle 3.
So we've got some questions. So Dave says, looking forward to the possibility of solo mode. Yes, I'll be very excited. We did a lot of playtesting for that.
It's coming soon now, man. It's going to come soon.
Coming right up. This is a rocket train.
Yeah.
Okay, and then an Old West rocket train. Let's get it more in the Harrow County universe. Joe says, my pleasure. Back of the legend boards question.
Yeah, so this came up in the comments today. Some people were wondering what's on the back of the legend boards, and I will be honest that Shad and I were actually trying to think of, could we give like an alternate, whether it's a leveled up or an alternate power to each of the legends, and we tried playtesting a few, but it was too much to do, and to try to balance them against all, it was too much, and so we couldn't do it, and we couldn't find ones that were unique enough. But there was a couple that were going to be really wild. Like we were going to actually have one with Emmy and
Yeah.
the skinless boy would actually be a token on the board that you controlled. That would.
And you were running around with them, and yeah.
But Shad and I have ideas for an expansion, if you will, if this does really well, that involves more narrative aspects of the story. So that'll be exciting. But what's going? I know. It's really cool. Okay, what's on the back of the legend boards? This is an idea that I'm going to run it past Cullen, but maybe on the back of each legend board, we have a little thing written by Cullen that kind of like some text that explains like the legend, like Emmy, and helps connect her ability thematically to what her ability is in the game.
Yeah, and actually that fits. Joe put Cullen's short story on the back of the legend boards. So we've got some good ideas happening, but I like the thematic explanation of the powers.
The short story would be too much text, I think. And then I don't know which one. It'd be hard to know what order you'd have to number them or whatever. But that's,
I like the thematic explanation of the powers a lot. That's pretty cool.
I gotta see if he'd be up to writing that. That'd be cool.
What's up? So also, Mark said he's from Australia and he wants to know. Oh yeah, go ahead.
No, g'day.
Yeah. He says, okay, I have to ask, Mildred, you've hinted at her a few times, and I'm very curious what an invisible character, well, except for bloody footprints, could do in the game.
Yeah, she's coming.
She's pretty cool. She's one of my favorites to play with, honestly.
Because she can do some sneaky stuff, so you'll see, I guess. It definitely is one of the next upgrades after solo mode, like if not.
We got to get all the cards now. Yeah, we got to get all the cards, and then we'll get. Yeah. I didn't think about that. And then Joe said, well, I think I read that part too. Joe said, what happened to the Mud Hains?
The Mud Hains. They're kind of what Cammy's Haints are now. Cammy's Haints are the Mud Hains. But I know what you're asking, Joe, because Joe was playtesting some early versions of Hester. And Hester used to have these, we called them Mud Hains, summoned Mud Hains. And we got rid of them because they were clunky and not necessary. It was during that phase of like, what can we get rid of? That's like, it wasn't clean. Yeah, it wasn't clean. Just right now, it's super like clear and clean of exactly what you have to do as Hester, which I love.
Yeah. And I think it's actually more thematic now too.
Oh yeah. I mean, she did have effectively Mud Hains, but I think it's a bit more appropriate for Cammy to have the Mud Hains. Like that's her actual Haint figures are the Mud Hains.
Yeah, I love that. And they look, I really like them a lot. Okay, so where are we at now? We read that, and Mark has already downloaded the soundtrack from Bandcamp.
There you go.
And then he also says, another expansion. Perhaps we may see the City Cousins someday.
City Cousins is one option, and for those that are wondering what that is, if you haven't read the comics, that's the latest Tales from Harrow County comic that just finished its 4-issue series like last month or so, and so it was cool. It's a cool story. That's definitely an option. And then there's also an option of, and this was Tyler brought this up actually on another call that we had, was the Hunters. If you recall from the middle of the story, there were these Hunters. And they're just possibly, I don't know if they'd be a faction or just something you have to contend with, but we got some brainstorms already going on about the Hunters that are just trying to survive. Maybe that's their goal. If they're another faction you can play as, that's interesting. And they don't have magical powers. They have some other. So I don't know. There's something interesting.
And,
something interesting there.
And Joe says he would love to see the City Cousins. I mean, I think we've got it's such a rich place to play.
There's everything just like it's so great as a game designer when you have such a rich tapestry of lore, of world, of background to draw from, because then we just get to compare our design with how does that fit with the world, and we just have to make it work. Like when we're coming up with powers like Bernice, like immediately Bernice, we both said, well, Iron Nail. I mean, she uses an Iron Nail in the comic. That's her thing. And then, so then the thing of it from a design perspective, what is the effect of the Iron Nail? And I mentioned this specifically because if you recall, Shad, that was the power that was giving us the most headaches, because there were just so many so many exceptions and so many. Well, what if this? And what if you try to pull a person? What if you do this? What?
Yeah.
And eventually, some other playtester. I'm afraid I can't remember exactly who it was, so I apologize to whoever gave us this feedback. Was what if it was instead of whatever we had, that it just the owner of the person who's got iron nail, literally an iron nail in their foot that's now stuck to the ground. They just have to pay one move, and then they get rid of the token, and then they can move on. And like, oh, that's super clean. They can't move. Yeah. Before we used to say you must pay 2 move to move off this hex. That's what it said before, which sounds very similar to pay a move and now you can move. That does cost you 2 move, but that
what if I have a card that can move them off that hex, Jay?
Yeah, or a bonus tile that says legend can move.
Yeah.
Like, does that count? Like, there's so many exceptions.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
Mark said the mud haints weren't clean.
That's funny. They weren't clean from a mechanic.
He made me laugh in the middle of it.
That's right.
Yeah, it's so funny thinking back on all the different versions and like the number of playtesters. I'm gonna have to send out some notes and make sure I don't miss anybody because we had a lot of people playing.
Yeah. Keep those questions coming if you have it. We did do videos, live streams of Hester, so we kind of went through all the Hester stuff with the snakes in the ears. We did one of the fair folk, and we even tweaked a little bit of the fair folk actually just recently, which if you watch the fair folk one, you place an arrow down. Your opponents place an arrow down indicating the direction of the thing you're looking for. You're looking for her sword, then her crown, and then the queen herself. And we stumbled upon, it was actually Shad and I playing, and we stumbled upon a thing where after I had one arrow down, and then he had to place the second one, and I'm like, the way he placed it was like, wait a second, you place it in a way that made it better for me. Why wouldn't you place it this way, which would be this whole area? It's because it must be in this area. And I pointed, is it here? And it was. And even though it was an exciting moment for me, we realized that's going to speed up that randomness, that luck-based randomness was going to speed up the fair folk too much. So we changed it now so that the first 2 arrows you place, whenever you're looking for an item, you don't get a free guess. For those that know the rules, that's what that is. And so from arrow 3 and on, you get a guess thereafter. So that was kind of cool.
I think that really balances them out for.
And so if there's no more questions, you have more on that?
No, we don't have any more questions right now.
Okay, so then we can segue into talking about a new thing that we're working on. So, which is Harrow County related, which is somebody had a. You have another question? Oh, let's do the question.
Joe wrote, did any legend or mechanic surprise you? Like something would work totally different than you expected or made players act differently than you intended? And then this is a comment. I'll read that. Yeah.
There was. It took a while.
Lots of surprises.
Mine would be it took a while to figure out Priscilla, her ability to goad other enemy haints. For a while there, it was kind of like the Iron Nail. She had a token and she put it down, and if you had a haint on an adjacent hex, you had to move at least 1 unit onto that hex to get rid of the go token before any of those haints could move.
Right.
And there was some things wrong with it there was so many. There's another one of those things in that list of like exceptions. Well, what if this and what if that? Can you do this? I'm like, it was. And so we had to change that. And now you put these 2 tokens down on specific hexes, on not random, like you choose. And if they're still there by the end of the round, you get to spawn on each of them. And so, but your enemy can go onto them throughout that round. And if they go onto it, it disappears. So that's a neat little push-pull thing where you can you might get 2 free haints out of it. Especially you put one right on one of your townsfolk. Awesome, right? It's great.
Yeah.
So it can be very powerful, but the I don't actually know if you can put it on your townsfolk. Maybe we changed that rule. I'll have to look. It says right on the card if you can or not. I just can't remember if you can. But regardless, that's a cool one. That's a cool one. Do you have any surprises or weird ones that you remember?
You know what's funny is I remember thinking we've got to get Malachi's power, absolutely, and it was fast compared to many of the others. How it worked. I mean, it took time, like all of them, but I thought it would be much harder to get because he's so thematically his attack is so much more powerful. I mean,
he's running through the woods. He's indomitable, you know, and like, I was like, how are we going to represent this without making him so much more powerful that, you know, but actually I think it works well. And because one thing that I think it's delightful to me how much the systems of the game work together to make strategy fit theme. So like, you know, Malachi, you can play Malachi as an attack-based, you know, you can make your strategies surround attack. We want everybody to need to go for all the different goals and care about them. But with Malachi and honestly, any of the objectives, but with Malachi, you could really make a strategy around attack that got, you know.
It's true.
That's great.
And there's a few that like that. I think Odessa is another one where you have, like, if you take that, you have to go for like kind of an attack strategy. You have to not attack, but you have to go for a cube strategy because she needs cubes.
Right. She's
So
gotta use it.
that's what's interesting. Like, it makes you play differently. Or like Corbin, the fact that you can spawn, remove one and spawn two, allows you to free up your movement a little bit more because you can spawn easier afterwards. So I like how they each will make you think differently and how to take advantage of them. Willa is like, she's one of my favorites from especially once you start getting an upgraded token. I mentioned that to somebody today on with
then
token.
you're just going to town.
You pull any token out of the bag you want and activate it, and then pull out Confluence, which that's amazing. So that's really cool.
And the only other thing so far is Mark says there's so much to pull inspiration from, especially as the comic is still growing. Tales from Harrow County is clearly set up for some huge stuff. So future expansions could go anywhere. I could not agree with that.
Yeah.
There's so many ways to go, and it's pretty fun. We have a lot of brainstorming talks that get me really excited about. And, you know, I think one thing is I feel like I have to be careful. I'm always have to be careful not to say too much stuff on these. But there's a lot of direction we could go. And, you know, I'm very passionate about narrative. Jay's very passionate about narrative. So there's some exciting things you can do with narrative. Once you have a game where people know the base systems and this chapter, I think it's just brilliant how the pitch games is doing. So far with both the games, it's brilliant. It really is, Jay. The chapter is like, you know, I love that. Like, and I think there's a lot. There's a lot you can do with that with narrative because it's such a goal of mine, and it's definitely happening here in a way that just makes me super happy. And in mind management, it happens too, where you want to be playing in that universe, you want to feel like you're really into it, and the variety of the rules. I have to say too that like the way the chapters moved, one of the things that struck me reading Harrow County is just how the power grew, right? Because you kind of you start and you're like, Emmy has these, can connect with Haynes, and I had expected the story to go, you know, at one level of intensity, and then it bumped up, and it just never quite stopped bumping up, you know. Mark says Hester's gameplay is so thematically on point. Thank you.
Yeah,
especially the way it builds. I'm glad the cannibalism made it into the game. That was we needed it. Yeah, I agree. Little light cannibalism. The spoons. I was going to say the spoons make Malachi's power. That was one of the things that surprised me is we came up with the spoons, which I love. But I was worried.
Explain it for
less. Sure. Yeah, right. Because we've been doing chapter 1. So in chapter 3, you start using the spoons on the plates. The first kill that you get gets you 1 point, and then the next point you get from kills, you need to kill 2 hates, and then from then on, you have to kill 3 hates to get a kill. Now, there's some things in that chapter that let you manipulate that spoon a little bit, and I was worried that this system would make Malachi less appealing, but we managed to make, first of all, attack is so important just as an action, just as something to do, that the points are a nice reason to start, but you keep going because of what you're going to do to the board. But you can also, because you can manipulate that stuff, you can strategize around getting points and kills. Nice job. Thanks for showing that, Jake. You can definitely build, as Joe says, you can definitely build a story around how the puzzle states came to be. Yeah, that's true. And a lot of those came from really interesting playtests. Like,
you would kind of have to make those puzzles. We kind of had to play through a game to get into a cool state, I think. I mean, that was what I was doing. And I know Jay said he did that for at least one of them. I'm sorry.
It's all right.
Oh.
We all got a bit of a tickle in our throat, apparently. So we can now chat a bit about some upcoming surprises, I guess. So
Let's do it.
a few backers have mentioned that, if I'm not playing a 3-player, let alone a 4-player, like I don't want to get the deluxe, but I want to get the deluxe components, but like I'm not going to use Hester, I'm not going to use Fairfolk. It's kind of lame.
That makes me sad.
So Shad and I were like, challenge accepted.
Yes.
So during this campaign, Shad and I and the Knights have been trying to figure out a mode in which
time.
Exactly.
Sorry.
Try to figure out a mode.
They had the time machine in case anyone's wondering.
Oh yeah. Oh, I don't think we're supposed to tell people that.
Oh, whoops. Oh gosh, the secret.
We figured out a mode in which you could play Hester versus the Fairfolk as a 2-player game. Now, that is an announcement. What
did you just say, Jay? You told everybody?
It's not 100% yet. It's not 100% yet. It's
we want to make
like
sure it's at the same quality.
85, 90%. Like it's working and it's fun. We just have to make sure that it's balanced. So we haven't played enough games to make sure like is it actually fair for both. And so how we did it, and you'll learn more on Monday if you watch the live stream on Monday, is we leveraged the solo mode to help with the automata of running the protectors and the family around the board. So they're running around the board using some automata, some cards you flip out that tell you where to spawn them and all this stuff that happens. While Hester's trying to infect them, Fairfolk are trying to put out their offers and trying to move them and get and find their queen and whatnot. And it's working surprisingly well, like almost immediately.
Yeah.
We had to come up with a new way and a couple new tokens to help run the turns, but it changed it for the better. It's actually made it feel more different even because these we basically have for those that watch the Fairfolk, that they take a turn after every protector or family or Cammy's turn. They take a turn,
small.
and they're short, so they get more turns. And so when playing against Hester, you couldn't just take one Hester turn and then one Fairfolk turn. Fairfolks are so short, it wouldn't be fair. So we broke it down such that the Fairfolk have a turn, and then Hester plays a solo card and executes that solo card. And then the Fairfolk have a turn, and then Hester has a turn, an actual Hester turn, and then the Fairfolk have a turn, and then the Fairfolk play a solo card. So they alternate, and that order was super confusing for a few playtests. It was like, whose turn is it to do this? And I can't remember.
The automata,
Like, oh, did we already do this? And it was super confusing. And so we changed it to a bag system because we could use the family bag because the family aren't playing. It's in this game. So we have a bag, and we created 3 new tokens, and one just says Hester. One says Hester activates the solo card, and the third one says Fairfolk activates the solo card. And all you're doing is the Fairfolk get a turn, and then you pull a token out and do whatever it says. And then the Fairfolk get a turn, and then you pull another token out and do whatever it says. And so it's interesting and different because 2 things might at the end of a turn, Hester might have a turn, and then we put it back in. Hester gets another turn immediately. Like it's going to change up the gameplay. And so far, it's been very interesting. And I'm super excited. And hopefully we can officially, I guess we announced it verbally, but officially announce it in an update once we just tested it a bit more. So that should hopefully be next week sometime, maybe. Let's test it.
It was great to see it just work. It makes sense because we have those factions playing against each other, and we have the solo mode and tested all that. So it makes sense that it would work. But it was a nice surprise. That's actually my biggest surprise. But I didn't know. I wasn't sure we were going to talk about it. But this is I'm glad we did. I want to say everything all the time.
Yeah.
So Raphael, hey Raphael, thanks.
Is that Raphael's in Rafa? Rafa, like your name?
Yeah.
Oh, Rafa, thank you for coming. Rafa, for those who don't know, is our superhero. Like he saved us. He you might have known if you were here from the start. You might have saw that we posted in our campaign like, hey, sorry, we can't offer a tabletop simulator mod because Tabletop Simulator doesn't do physics well with falling cubes. It doesn't. They just stick to each other.
They get stuck in weird ways and all kinds of stuff.
But Rafa said, and I'm calling him Rafa because that's how he signs his email. So I assume that's his preferred way of Rafa.
I think I'll spell it for a sec if we're wrong.
Okay, cool. You tell if
Yeah,
that's right, if that's incorrect. Okay, cool.
I'll tell you.
He came up with a ways like of randomizing the number of cubes that come out, and so it's not a cube tower. Every cube that goes, whenever you drop any cubes in, it randomizes. Every cube has a 50% chance of coming out. And sure, it's simulated, but it's great because it effectively does the same thing, which is wonderful. So not only that, he's added he uses our box on the tabletop simulator mod, and he added our haints, and now there's states to the haints. If you press 1 or 2, the state comes in or state goes out. So that's wonderful. Like he just kept adding more and more stuff. He's like, "Oh, guys, I have some more stuff for you." Rafa, you're awesome. Thank you so much. We gave him a free pledge, the whole Satchel edition he's got. Like
great. I didn't know that. Oh, that's
wonderful. Yeah.
Like, maybe I did.
I don't know, but it's just like that's. I would have paid somebody to do that if I knew it could be done. I just didn't think it could be done.
Yeah.
So it's great.
That was really, and he did, and he also came and did a live demo, which was really nice of him, and we had a great game.
Nice.
And he asked, is there any chance to get any Mind MGMT Easter egg on the Harrow County game?
Oh, an Easter egg. Well, that's tricky.
Yeah.
There is.
But he's thinking about it. See?
There's one thing that if you subscribe to offthepagegames.com's newsletter, you are given, when you do that, you're given a free decoder, which is something that's very on brand for mind management, like a decoder, like a secret decoder, and it's used in the game. There are pieces in the game that you could use that decoder on in mind management, which is pretty cool. But it's cool. But it's not as on brand for Harrow County to have a secret decoder.
I want to tell you how the conversation is developing, because Mark also said a nod to Matt Kent would be cool, especially since he also worked on The Butler, a Harrow County short story. Joe says, good point, Mark. And Rafa says, I'm really happy to help everyone with these contributions. It's a win-win situation.
Thanks, Rafa.
It is certainly a win for us.
Yeah. And our backers.
Mark also said, and this is, I don't mean to split off from what you were talking about.
No.
I think this is a great question, but he said, oh, wow, Fairfolk versus Hester is a very surprising combination. I imagine the Fairfolk would feel very different.
They feel
from Hester, yes, absolutely.
They feel so different. Fairfolk are so, in a one way, so friendly and so happy to play with, because they're giving stuff to everybody. Hey, take some of this. Here's some free. Here's some gifts. Here's some fun stuff. And you're just so addicted to getting all this good stuff, but then you're giving them more and more information and helping them win. So it's a real tricky balance of like, guys, let's slow down on how much we take from the Fairfolk here. They're close to finding their queen. So,
and I was worried that playing as Hester just versus the Fairfolk, we wouldn't want the offers, that they just wouldn't. But that's not the case. You still want those Fairfolk offers.
The one hiccup we have to solve is that there are, I think, 3 cards and 2 offer tokens that don't make sense, and we have to figure out what to do with them. So either we have to change them. Like one of the offer tokens is for the Fairfolk that if somebody takes it, that player gets to flip over. Oh, no, it's a card. No, it's on both actually. Gets to flip over a mason jar. There's a card that does it, and there's an offer token. And there's no mason jars in the Fairfolk or Hester. So what does that do? So we have to either, our options are to tell people when you play this mode, remove these cards and offer tokens. That's the yuckiest option.
Yeah, it would work, but we don't love that one.
Yeah. Option 2 is we try to tweak it so that and change it so that it can work, which would mean we'd lose mason jar powers or abilities in the Fairfolks, which also kind of sucks. And option 3, we come up with a way that, well, what does this mean in the Fairfolk world, in this 2-player world? And that's
one of them we figured out so far, and we're trying to do the other.
Yes, one we did. But like, so anyways, we'll put that out there later. I don't know. Maybe I'll ask people their thoughts.
And I did end up derailing us from the talk about Matt Kent and the Butler. And that's a really great. That's a really great thread to think about. I mean,
I wonder.
Cool connection. And I like that short.
What would be really funny for those that know Matt Kent is somehow in Harrow County. We'd have to ask Colin and Tyler if they're cool with this, of course, and Matt Kent. But to get PK Verve included in somewhere in here, even in a rulebook hiding or something like that. PK Verve is a character in almost every Matt Kid story, like literally almost every Matt Kid story. He tries to include this character, and that's his power, his ability to jump into different fictions. And he's actually
that's a great idea, Jay.
Yeah, so
it's worth asking.
Yeah, I don't know where to put him. Like, he wouldn't be a card or something. He would just be like on the back of something, or
just come into it somehow.
Yeah, it's got to feel.
I'm thinking of mechanics, and I'm like, no, Shad, leave it alone.
Oh, I don't think we can make it.
No, I agree. I agree. I'm telling myself no.
That's funny.
It's difficult.
We even said that if you get the Mind Management playing cards, that was on the Kickstarter, on the last Mind Management Kickstarter, we have playing cards. The Joker on it is PK Verve, and it has an ability on that card that actually works in the Mind Management game. So you can play with that. Says,
maybe only visible using the time token.
Oh yeah, the red filter. That's fun. That's fun.
A hashtag secret that opens something on Flux Safe House?
Right. Yeah, the Flux Safe House is a website where there's all these codes hidden in Mind Management, like in the art. Matt and I really came up with some clever ways to hide some of these codes. Like, some are really hard, like in a fun, hard way. And if you find the code, you go to Flux Safe House and enter it in, and it prints out a new card for you. Or if you have the upcoming Secret Missions Deluxe, it'll say open up envelope 4, and you open it up and you got a brand new card. Now, if you're getting this new Mind Management with the Secret Missions packed in, you can, of course, just open all the envelopes and you have access to all of them right off the bat because you have it. You can do whatever you want. But the concept is that they're hidden, and they do come in little envelopes. So they're hidden. So it's up to you if you want to find all the codes hidden in the art. It's like an extra game inside the box.
Yeah, I love that stuff. So
maybe for Harrow County, we should have one of those things where you open the box and like these fake snakes jump out, like those peanut brittle.
Okay, we do that. Can we do that to just one? Can you send that to me? Because I'll forget that we had this conversation.
Yes, of course.
And then you'll get me on the line. Be like, we have to.
That'd be cool. That'd be cool. Like,
campaign's over, Jay.
That'd be a cool like contest or something. Find the snakes, and one of them. That's all. There's no game, and there's no game inside of it. Dang. But when you open it, you got a snakes come out. What the? What? And a message saying you just won $1,000 or something like that.
Oh my God, Jay, what are you doing to me? Okay, so Snake Edition, make it happen. That's what Joe said. Rafa, this is a really. Thank you guys for all this participation too. It's making it really fun. So Mark says, it's interesting thinking about Hester versus Fairfolk, especially considering that in the comics, the mason jars hold Hester's captured moccasins. Yeah, absolutely. That is really interesting. And that's a cool Mark. Thank you, because that's a cool way to. Sometimes you get that's a theme nugget that would help us solve the mason jar thing. I think Rafa also said, Fairfolk works like the Riverfolk companion in Root, and that's really great. It's a balancing faction that helps the whole game and can benefit with it and can stole the whole game. It's really hard to play against a good player using these balancing factions. You know, it's funny because I really like Root. I played it one time when we started coming up with skirmishes, and then I think I've probably played it 10 times now, and I've bought digital editions, and everybody's talking about it. You know, all the reviews are like, Root and this, and what you want a 2-player Root, and it's very flattering because I love that game. But now I'm playing it all the time. Like it's funny how that makes it happen. And I know what you're talking about. I've only played with the Riverfolk one time. That was after we made. Not that it matters, but yeah, that I think it's a good idea, and it's Jay did a really great job while we were designing Hester and while we were designing the Fairfolk, emphasizing that we should not design a faction that was going to ruin the balance of the 2-player game that we already had.
That was key.
Really hard one, and I'm really glad he pushed so hard for that, and I think that's why.
To clarify on that, what I meant was that the 2 players, the 1 versus 1, they got their own objectives they're trying to do. they're still collecting the tokens on the board. If you had a third faction, and we did for a while, actually, we did have Hester interacting with the tokens, the ability tokens on the board.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it really impacted this 2-player game. Like, because now there's not enough tokens, and now those two aren't powered up enough, and they're really slow to get going. And so we're like, okay, we can't have Hester interfere in that way with the 2-player game. And so keep the tokens only for the 2 players, the family versus protectors or Cammy, for example. And that was key.
And the social negotiation, one of my favorite things, and one of the reviewers was like, oh, when you get to Hester, it's so asymmetric. Wait, I mean, you get to the fair folk. Not wait, everybody's seen it now, but like, wow. I was so happy because that's the level of asymmetry I really wanted us to get to. And we got there, and one of the reasons we did was that design choice of like, we wanted the players, like the fair folk don't even really, they exist on the board in nests. That's it.
They don't have units,
they're in their own other world, which thematically is perfect. I mean, I'm not trying to, I was just really.
No, it's true.
Phil, it would be really, if I had designed this alone, I would not be able to talk about it in such, glowing terms. So Mark says, let me catch up here. Mark says, it's interesting to thinking about, yes, we said that already. So he says, I feel like Mind MGMT could hide in the Harrow County Observer, maybe in the newspaper's puzzle section.
Yeah, that's the newspaper. That's true.
Joe likes that.
That's right. That's a good idea.
Maybe a letter to the editor from a certain Harrow County resident.
From PK Verb, yeah. That's funny.
Rapid says, yep, the idea of a balancing faction. It's an idea used in many places, and that's great. Yeah, that's true. But it's like, it's so funny. I think it's kind of like, I guess the point I was trying to make that was belabored was it was a necessary idea in a way, because if we wanted to keep that balance, those were 2 of the options that would allow us to do that.
Well, one of my favorite things that we managed to do with the game is that we say asymmetry a lot, and even in the family, protectors, and Cammy, there's asymmetry in how they play and whatever. But they're still very similar in what they do on the board. They all move the same. They all spawn the same. They all strengthen the same. They all attack the same. Yes. They all use wilds the same. So that part's the same. They're all moving around the board, trying to get tokens, trying to get more powerful. How they use their tokens and how they do their legend abilities, all that stuff, and their objective are different. But I think that makes it hopefully more approachable for a slightly more casual gamer than some more complicated games. Because I know Root is definitely a well-loved game, but it's definitely a steep learning curve. Like if you have to know how every other faction works, which is true for us once you get into Hester and Fairfolk, because you do need to know how every other faction works once you get up to those Fairfolk and Hester.
Yes, and I think one wonderful effect. I remember the conversation we had where you were saying, I want them to do the same things on the board, and I was like, yes, that's a really good idea, and it really allows you to predict what the other player is going to do, which makes it more interesting, because so often when I play Root, I don't know about everybody else, but I don't know exactly what I don't need to know exactly what they're going to do, but I'm not predicting what they're going to do. I'm not trying to predict what they're going to do. I'm just trying to get ready. They attack me in this clearing. Whereas with skirmishes, there I did it. I wondered when I was going to do that.
That's funny.
In Harrow County, we know some of the possibility space. And then when a surprise happens, that's the other thing, is that when you can't predict what the other players are going to do at that level, in the nitty gritty, then it's harder to surprise them because that's just what they're doing. So it's really nice in chapters 2 and 3 that you can go into this. I'm like, I know Jay gets me all the time. I know Jay can't do this because he can only move this many. If he picks the wild, and then he picks something, draws something, confluence from his back. It's always confluence. But he gets me with it. It's like, it's a great feeling that wouldn't be possible if I didn't understand that those main actions operated in the same way for him.
And I do want to say, because there's been some people that are like, wait, so I have to play this game like 2, 3, or 4 times to get to the full game? And like, no, you know what? If you're like a gamer, like you're an uber gamer, like someone who just like can dive into the heaviest games, go right to chapter 3. Chapter 3 is the full game. Go right to that. Chapter 4 is just chapter 4 because it just has Cammy. It's the same as chapter 3, really. It just has Cammy instead. So you can choose to play Cammy or not. And then chapter 5 is just Hester. So I would definitely recommend playing with at least play a chapter 3 or 4 game before chapter 5, just so you understand how main game works before you jump into Hester. But that's one of the benefits of making Hester the solo mode, which again we'll have a live stream on Monday about, is that you can play Hester on your own before your friends come over, so you fully understand how Hester works, and then maybe play a 3-player game with them.
And really, I think, Chapter 1 and 2 are in a way just a solution for us to teach the game without, in a really interactive way. I think it's a really.
It is. I've definitely played with some people that they're like, they actually wanted to play Chapter 1 again before even moving on to Chapter 2.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because it's just like, go at your pace, man. It's just there to help get you into the game better and at your own way you want to do it. Any more cues?
Mark says, I have one player in my group that loves cooperative play. Yes, exactly. I love cooperative play, so I love playing the Fairfolk.
They probably like playing as a Fairfolk.
Yeah, exactly what he said. So the Fairfolk is it's a great way for her to play. It's really awesome how many different play styles the game coming. That was a huge thing because I always want all my friends to sit down at the table and be able to play. That I was so it's pretty magical that. And Joe says, absolutely, I definitely tend to avoid combat, and it's a very viable way to win in this game. Yeah, you do not. I mean, you can. Jay has beaten me several times without killing any of my mates.
That's why once you get to Chapter 3, that the game actually gets more interesting because of that spoon we showed you before, where you have to kill more hates to get a point. We had to do that because we had a playtest, and I bet you it was Zach on my playtest group. Zach is really great at playing in a way that he thinks is going to break the game. He tries to break the game.
Yeah,
he's like, I'm going to try to do this, and like, go for it, man. And he did break the game in a way that this was before we had the spoon, because he just put all the effort on fighting, just fighting and turtling, and we realized that wasn't fun, like for anybody.
Wasn't what we wanted.
He's turtling. He doesn't care about moving around at all because he's not going for his storms. He's just killing. And we're like, this is not fun. So as soon as we added the spoon idea, that meant you had to focus on your other goals, and that pushed the game into the fun zone again. About like, that's when the game is fun, of trying to get your storms to the buildings or get your haints and units all the way to your townsfolk. That's when the game is fun.
And you could play in a way where you focus on attack, but you're going to have to do a lot of interesting choices in order to make that work. And I think that made me happy.
But you still couldn't win with 100% attack. Like that'd be so I couldn't imagine how you could do that. To get that many cubes, to kill 3 people just to get 1 point eventually, that's so hard. I think you get 3 or 4 points.
Yeah. Every time we talk about this, I'm reminded of one of my favorite demos at Gen Con, where this guy, I wish I remembered his name, but he wrote, we chatted a little bit after, but he played, and he was wearing a Star Trek red shirt, and he just decided what he wanted to do was just charge into the brambles and hold the brambles at whatever cost.
Sounds like a decision a red shirt would make.
It was, and it was still surprisingly close, which is insane, because he was getting that point at the end of every round, and he was going after, when he could, he would get points in other ways, and he was killing things, but it was just hilarious to me. And it was it was the exception that proved the rule. Like he did lose. He definitely lost. And he had a great time doing it. I think you want to play that way as a red shirt, it's thematic. It's great.
We got about 3 minutes left. And the last thing I'll tease out is a potential for another stretch goal. I don't know if we're going to get there, because this actually is one of the more expensive stretch goals. So I don't know if we're going to get there, but it's something called the Reckoning system.
The Reckoning system. I'm so happy you're talking about this, because I really want to. Okay. We need more time, Jay. I should have been quiet.
It's a cool system, but it involves like 20 more cards in the to add, which is like that's a lot. So I almost don't want to. I don't want to get there. It's too much.
I don't believe you.
It is definitely the last stretch goal I have. Like if we get there, kind of thing. So I don't know if we'll get there or not. But it's a cool system that helps. It's kind of like the shift system in the sense that each person has their own little passport that they keep track of all their wins and losses on. And as you get more wins, or even just plays, actually, you get to unlock certain powers and benefits, and it gives you new ways to play. So there's even more variety on the horizon with this. But maybe we'll save that for an expansion or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Yeah. Our second Kickstarter. No, I want it to be in this one.
Right? Maybe.
Yeah.
That's it.
Well,
I think, unless there's any more questions.
I'm looking. Nope.
Thank you so much for those that watched live and asked questions. And thanks to anybody who's stuck around and watched afterwards as the recording. Hopefully you found this entertaining and interesting. And if you have any other questions, you can ask it on you can go to Off the Page Games on any social media platform and ask it. You can go to the comment section on the Kickstarter. You have to back for at least $1 so you can have the ability to comment. But you can always then cancel your pledge later. So if you don't want to pay anything, but you have to pledge at least $1. But while you're at it, why not pledge for a satchel edition while you're at it?
Yeah, go for it.
But that's it. Shad, any last thoughts or words or comments?
No, it's just, for me, it's a great experience getting to do this with all of you, and the community is so great. I've loved demoing and I love doing these live streams. So Joe says thank you to both of us. Thank you, Joe. Thank you all for participating. This is such a blast. I can't wait to keep doing it.
Next week we're planning to do next week we're planning to do the solo live stream on Monday, and then Friday we're going to be doing a live stream with Cullen and Tyler.
Okay.
That's exciting. Yeah.
I want to hang out with them again.
So we can do more Q&A and actually talk to them about their experiences with anything, but obviously Harrow County.
Yes.
That's it, everybody. Thanks so much.